everybody else's hands, this is a microphone. In my hands, it's a pipe too much to be done on this mic that I ain't doing ready.
Alright guys, here's my quick modern minute, and this is the deck I'm playing at the most recent PTQ I'm going to, and that's Kiki-Jiki Pod, I guess you would call it. I'll start off with the mana base, 2 townships, which are really good in the deck because, you know, if anything happens, you could always use a township. Then I've got Razor Verge Thicket and Copperline Gorge. Now, you could probably play other lands if you wanted, but I find myself using these the most. 1 Firelit Thicket, because it allows you to play Kiki-Jiki the best. 8 fetch lands, all of which are able to get all of the fetchable lands in my deck, so all my lands are good, and I also have Deathrite Shaman. I have like a couple of each of the lands. I have a few basics because people play Path to Exile. So all the lands here just like fit the mana base perfectly. It's everything that you would need. Now this shock land, I don't know about Misty Rainforest or Scalding Tarn. I mean, they could be switched out, but that's what I'm going with right now. The Verdant Catacombs, and you know, that's probably the most important one. The only breeding pool is important. I don't know about Steam Vents, but I like it. It also helps you not lose life, which is important, having the breeding pool and the Steam Vents. So I'm going to go with first my Mana Dorks. I'm running 2 Deathrite Shamans in the main. This deck runs 9 Mana Dorks, but the Deathrite Shamans do multiple things. They make mana. I have 8 shocks. They can gain you life, which is also useful. They deal with the blue deck that runs Snapcaster Mage. You could exile the spell out of their graveyard. I do have an Overgrown Tomb that activate black. And they could also exile the lands out of their graveyard before they get a chance to use it. 3 Noble Hierarchs. It's fairly standard. I mean, it's just Noble Hierarch. So I basically switched out 1 Noble Hierarch and I added 2 Deathrights to the deck. I found that's better. Birds of Paradise are good. They have flying, which is really important because of a township. Now, this is my favorite part of the deck, is Lotus Cobra. With Lotus Cobra and 8 fetch lands, you can get all the mana you need. And then you have the Wall of Roots, which is useful, blah, blah, blah. You got your 4 Birthing Pods, your Court of Calling, which is almost better than Green Sun Zenith. You do have to watch out for counterspells, but it's fine. The 2 Restoration Angels, 1 Deceiver Exarch, 1 Zealous Conscript, and 2 Kiki-Jikis. It's fairly standard. You could run more Restoration Angels. Exarch can come into play. You can untap. And Conscript is actually part of the pod chain because it can untap the pod, or you could take control of their land. Like both Exarch and Conscripts actually do a very similar thing. Or you could even take their own creature and pod it. I have 1 Murderous Redcap because dealing damage is kind of important. It works well with Kiki-Jiki. You could just deal a bunch of damage to him. I don't have a Sack Outlet or Malira because I don't like that deck. And 3 Kitchen Things, all which have Persist, which is really nice because that works at Gavany Township negates the... So if the game gets grindy, you know, and they're all easy to cast because they're hybrid. But the Redcap also pods into Kiki-Jiki. The Kitchen Finks pods into Resto. And, you know, Gavany Township, if it comes down to one of those really grindy games, you have an almost unkillable guy that deals damage or an almost unkillable guy that gains you life. And gaining life is so important when you're using things like Birthing Pod and Fetch Lands. And then here's like my protection for the deck. you need to, with the red-white or blue-white variant modern decks out there, it's extremely important to have protection for your cards. So, also your cards, I used to play Pod back when it was standard and when it became the most popular deck, but I run one image, which works well with kitchen things because it gains persist. Works well with Restoration Angel because it can, bounce a creature. You can do pod stuff. I'm not playing Spellskite. I got 2 Eternal Witnesses in the main board. Eternal Witness is really good because you're sacrificing a lot of things, and if they counter something, you can get it back from the graveyard. It's a useful card. Spellskite, Revel Arc, okay. You have a lot of 1 and 2 power. Like, you can use Revel Arc to get back X-Arc and do the combo all over. Revel Arc is really important. I run main deck Limbala. Before I talk about that, it's just, you can get back X-Arc with Revel Arc, and that's probably the most important thing. You can also get back Kiki-Jiki with Revel Arc. You can get back almost everything in your deck with Revel Arc, as long as they don't target your graveyard. I run a main deck Limbala. Most people may not, it may be sideboard, but with so many decks out there, especially the Mirror Match, Deathrite Shamans, Birds of Paradise, well, not Birds of Paradise, but like, it's just a good card with all the creatures. It also negates their Spellskites, and Spellskite is bar none. Like, Malira is good, and Glenalandra is also protection because she counters spells and she has persist, which is good with Phantasmal Image and Kiki-Jiki. Also, it's 4 mana cost, fits into the curve really well. Spellskite, most important card in probably any modern deck. You have people running around with lots of stuff, and okay, you know what Spellskite does, Now, here's my actual sideboard and then potential sideboard. So, here's my actual sideboard. And, yeah, it's a little weird, I know. There's a lot of cards here. The cards to the right are potential, but Angel's Grace, I want to try that out. As like a split second, they try and do something in response, I split second. And it's 1 mana, so against like eggs or something like that, it works nicely. Mind Sensor is good against decks with a lot of fetch lands, like Jund. Kataki is good against Affinity. It's great against Affinity. That could be a Stony Silence, though. Not gonna lie. Kataki is probably the best card the Court of Calling into. Another image, you can copy Baneslayer Angel, because they're running Baneslayer Angel. You can copy Tarmogoyf, lots of stuff. This guy I'm trying out, but it's probably going to be a Stony Silence. I feel like I can Court of Calling into him and use him to take out a card from their graveyard that they would be using, like a... Yeah, it's not Rest in Peace. Rest in Peace would be the other option. But with Crypt Keeper, I think his name is, you can, like, if they try to Gifts Ungiven, in response, you can... They pass priority, Court of Calling into Crypt Keeper, take out their, their Unburial Rights. Getic Teague is one of the best cards against the other decks running around. Anything with, it shuts down Cryptic Commands, Sphinx's Revelation. It shuts down things in my, Karn, it shuts down. 2 of the split second deal 2 damage. It's good against counter spells, other stuff. 2 Sowing Salts. Sowing Salt is good against 2 decks. 3 decks, actually. It's good against Tron. Cuts off one of their Tron pieces. It's good against Jund. It takes out, like, Raging Ravine. And it's good against red, white, and blue because you could take out, like, one of their main sources of mana. And this is then option 2. So, option 2 is Obstinate Bailout. This is like if I'm playing like a Hate Bears deck, or I know they're going to bring in Hate for my deck. What I've done here is I've turned it into a beatdown deck that could also be a Solar Flare deck, because it uses Sun Titan and Phantasmal Image. Elish Norn is good against Lingering Souls and the sort. You put these cards in, and you could almost take out the Court of Calling or Birthing Pod and just turn the deck into like a classic green-white Nyapod deck. Or Solar Flare, which is always fun. The Elish Norn can be taken out. But it's so much fun. Wilt Leaf Liege is good. It makes your birds 1/2. It makes some of your guys out of Spellskite range. It makes your beatdowns easier, especially with townships. I would play Leyline of Sanctity, most likely. I mean, if these were all side options that I'm considering. Ancient Grudge, because the Batterskull does exist. Disenchant, because Leylines of Sanctity and other sort of other things exist. Phyrexian Revoker seems like an interesting card to Court of Calling into. You can, like, they play a Planeswalker, like, or you know they have a Planeswalker sideboard, or you know they have a card that you don't want them to activate. You can get this guy into play, and you could almost shut down their plan or force them to use a removal spell. Or if you have Spellskite, you know, whatever. Rest in Peace is good against a myriad of decks. It's even good against Arcbound Ravager. The only problem is you'd have to take out the Eternal Witness, which means you'd probably replace it with... I'd replace the Eternal Witnesses most likely with a Obstinate Bailoff, and depending. Now, against tokens, because there are token decks... Oh, also Disenchanter for Boggle. I fucking hate Boggle. This is Staticaster is a good card against a lot of decks. It kills Vendilion Clique, Dark Confidant, blah blah blah. But it's not that important. And a second Spellskite. I might just want the second, or even third or fourth Spellskite. But, so this is the base of my list. Other sideboard options include, like I'm showing here that Limbala is for all the decks playing Deathrite. You drop down Limbala, you almost shut down their ramp. Or even against the mirror match, it's great. But other sideboard options include Meddling Mage, and other assorted. The Lowe's Cobra, though, I find is probably one of the best cards, only because you can go turn 1, Mana Dork, land. Turn 2, tap the Mana Dork, tap a land, and play a fetch land, and you have 3 mana right there. So you can go turn 1, Bird, turn 2, Lotus Cobra. So here's like the best case scenario. So that would make 1, 2, 3 mana, and you can grab yourself an assortment of lands. Let's say Stomping Ground in this case. That's my dog, Jackie. Hey, puppy. And then right there you have 3 mana. On turn 2, you could potentially cast Birthing Pod, or Eternal Witness, or Spellskite, or you could basically almost cast anything with a turn 2 Lotus Cobra. And even if they kill it, the trigger still goes on the stack. Yeah, you could even play Deceiver Exarch, untap your land, and play something else, which is really, it's a very cool interaction. Limbala is a little difficult to cast, but against a lot of matchups, she's good, and she blocks Resto. I have 1 Overgrown Tomb. for Deathrite Shaman, and for potential sideboard cards, if I want to play something like a Slaughter Games, that would be cool. Some other cards I wanted to consider. Oh, by the way, if you go pod with a Lotus Cobra and a pod into a Lotus Cobra and a Birthing Pod on turn 2, you win the game. If you're on the play, there's absolutely nothing they can do to stop it. So the deck looks fairly simple. It's difficult to play. You have to definitely keep track of your life total. You will find that your life total is very important because you start using fetches and shocks and you bolt yourself, and like the birds are good, Court of Calling is good, but it all costs a lot of life. So make sure you keep track of your life. Zealous Conscripts is hilarious, by the way. Oh, and people, I want to remind people, Emrakul cannot be targeted by colored spells, but he can be targeted by colored creatures. So you can Zealous Conscript and Emrakul, take control of it and kill it. So let's look at like what I could try if I wanted to. Like what cards I would put in and take out based on sideboard. I'm still not sure about Crypt-Keeper. I mean, there must be a better option, like a guy that can come into play and just exiles graveyards. Or I'll just play Rest in Peace. But because Rest in Peace also works against what's the name of that card? Rest in Peace also works against Arcbound Ravager. If they try and sacrifice Arcbound Ravager, you can they can't put counters on things. So I would start by taking out an Eternal Witness if I was going to play Rest in Peace, because that kind of negates the Eternal Witness. It's almost like a Torpor Orb in that case. Making cuts is difficult. Harmonic Sliver is also another choice. When Vala might be the first card that you cut, you never cut Spellskite. Unless you're playing like Eggs or, like just a really uninteractive deck. You might cut a Murderous Redcap. I wouldn't cut the Kitchen Finks though. But Rest in Peace does shut off the Persist, which is also an issue, which is why I wanted a one-sided remove Grey Dread rather than both sides. So against, let's say, a deck like Tron, actually no, against Red, White, and Blue, I would put in Mind Sensor, Teague, cut Linvala. That's against Tron, I'm sorry, the Sowing Salts and the such. Yeah, against Tron, you don't need Spellskite as much. You don't need Linvala. The Sowing Salts really, and Gaddock Teague, that's really good against Tron. The Sudden Shock is good against other Kiki-Jikis, Vendilion Click, Snapcaster Mage. Yeah, but if I was playing Red, White, and Blue, I would put in probably either Rest in Peace or Crypt-Keeper, Gaddock Teague to shut down their Cryptic Commands and their Sphinx Revelations and their Supreme Verdicts, and I might take out an Image, a Linvala, and most likely another Eternal Witness, or just leave in one, depending on how my curve looks. The 3-drop slot is just so important. So that's what I would do against the red, white, and blue decks out there. Now, against a deck that's like a hate bear deck, or for example, in this case, Jund, Obstinate Baloth, definitely taking out Murderous Redcap. Persist is bad when they have Deathray Shaman. Thrun is also good against Jund. It's good against Tron too. It's good against, but like sometimes against Jund, all you need is Obstinate Baloth. Even Wilt Leaf Liege, you could just put in Obstinate Baloth and Liege and that against the eggs match, or against eggs, or what's that called? Against Storm, decks like that. I'd put in like Kataki, Sudden Shocks, things like that against Affinity. I'd like to get, if I was to get those guys in, I would have to make a complete redo of the deck to make it more of a beatdown deck. You could actually, yeah, you could take out a Red Cap. You could probably take out Revel Arc, because you already have a 6-drop. Although Revel Arc's just so useful, like it gets Phantasmal Image out of your graveyard and into play, copying like Revel Arc, or copying like something else. But you know, if you need to, if someone's playing like a hate bear deck, you could turn this into Solar Flare pretty easily, and it can get pretty nasty if you do that. Also, don't forget to put basics in your deck, please. Everyone plays Path to Exile now. But this is my deck. This is what I'm playing. This is what I like. If you guys like it, it's cool. If you guys want any changes, that's fine too. I always like changes. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you later.